Hey guys, Jim here. Wanted to show you something new that I've been working on recently, a knife that I just finished up, and give you a comparison to what a standard version may be, and also introduce you to a brand new model that I just started making as well. But we'll get to that one towards the end. That's part of the Hell series. So what we're looking at here is the Scaphoid. Now this is my typical Scaphoid here with its typical grind. And this one happens to be done in Chad Nichols stainless Raindrop Damascus, as is the other one that I'm going to be showing you here in a moment. This is pretty standard fare with the marble carbon fiber scales, titanium hardware, and the standard grind, which gives you the one flat grind here and then the flat grind up here for the top swedge. It's really just to add a little bit more effect and a little bit more drama to the overall knife. It pops a little bit more when it's in satin. You can see it a little bit easier, but here you go in a close-up, and you can see those grinds there. So that's typically what you're looking at when you're looking at a Scaphoid. The main reason that I designed this knife was I wanted something slimmer, but almost the same overall length as my Hellraiser. That way you had something that was small and compact with a shorter handle that was very easy to conceal wearing on a horizontal rig, which is typically what I recommend people when we go to do the sheath. I always tell them, do horizontal. It's going to hide under even just an untucked t-shirt. You don't have to do anything special. So that's the basic idea behind this. I love Tanto blades, especially Americanized Tantos. And while I do make a Quaken, which is more of that traditional Japanese Tanto, this is the style that I've always personally preferred in my own collection. So that's why I decided to make one of my own. Now, what I'm doing here, I'm calling this the Jekyll and Hyde variation of the Scaphoid. And here is the reason for that. You're getting two completely different personalities, and it's not just in the handle materials, but it's also in the finishing and in the grinds. So you see on this side, well actually we'll start here with the Dr. Jekyll side. So it's a little bit classier, a little bit maybe more refined, a little bit more, I guess basic is a good way to put it as well, because it has the standard Scaphoid grind that I do. I just showed you on the other knife. And then what I do is a nice hand rub satin on the flats, even though this particular knife is Damascus. I love the way that it gives a two-tone effect. And yeah, it looks a little bit elegant, a little bit dressy on this side, and then you flip it over, and then you get the Mr. Hyde. So this is darker, so we went with the carbon fiber and kept with the dark etch on the stainless Raindrop Damascus. But because it is a little bit more wicked and a little bit more evil, I wanted to add a completely different grind. So I've done a compound grind here, and then instead of running the full swedge like you see here that I typically do, I just did a tip swedge, which is something I've actually never done on this knife before, and I really like how that came out. It gives it a little bit of a different character. I do enjoy doing compound grinds every now and then. It's not something I do often, but is something that I do enjoy doing from time to time. So what I wanted to express here were just two completely different personalities set up on one knife. And there are people that have done different colored scales on different sides and things like that, and they've had neat little names for them, and that's nothing entirely new. But what I wanted to do was, one of the things that I love, go back into my older videos from when I was just collecting before I was knife making, one of my favorite grinds is the MGT grind by Kirby Lambert, where he does a compound grind on one side and a more standard grind on the other, so it's asymmetrical. And I always enjoyed that because his are those knives where a lot of times you'll look and go, oh man, I love this knife, I love that grind, but I really love that grind too, and I don't want to buy two knives to get that. His MGT gave you the option, if you chose that, to where you could get the compound grind on one side and a standard grind on the other. So it's something that I've always admired, something I've always loved in the knives that I've collected, so I wanted to do that myself. I've done that a few times on a few different knives, but I've never given the knife a true 50-50 split personality. One of the reasons I chose this monk's cloth natural micarta was because of the weave pattern. The weave pattern looks very, very similar to the carbon fiber weave pattern, so I wanted to do that. I'm probably not going to do this very often with the monk's cloth micarta. I'm just not a big fan of using micarta in general, but I think it came out great. And you see the way that I do the front of my scales. I have kind of a signature look where I do crescents, or I'll do spikes, or I'll do something in that vein, devil's tail, devil's moon, things like that. But they are always tapered, so there's not a snag point there. So for somebody that's only seen pictures of my knives, now you understand that they are actually tapered. And they go into the sheath knife nice and easily, and they don't snag on anything. But I just want to kind of give you guys a quick look at this before it goes out the door. This is sold. It was sold right away. I'm very happy for the gentleman that's getting it, because he's actually the owner of this, which I'll be getting to here in a moment. So one final quick look at the different grinds and the way they look spine down and edge up, the way that they meet up. The finishing on the one side, this is, what did I do on that? I want to say I did 600 grit hand rub satin on there. Gives it a nice little pop. Hold on for 1 second. I have my phone going off for some reason. There we go. So there is the Jekyll and Hyde Scaphoid. Thank you guys for taking a look at that. And I mentioned that the gentleman that bought that also owns this. This is the prototype for my new Hellseeker model. So basically it's an offshoot from the Hellraiser and the Hellbound. So the Hellraiser, everybody pretty much knows that. If you don't, go back in my channel. I have shown it a couple of times. The Hellbound was a double recurve tanto version of that same knife with a larger, wider handle and some noted differences there in the way that it feels in the hand. What I wanted to do here was to create my version of a fighting style knife. I wanted the recurve to be very severe. I wanted a very deep belly, so this, not only the blade profile, but the grind is different than the Hellraiser. It's also a reverse compound grind, so there's no speed bump as you're cutting through something. It's not snagging. The blade actually drops off and gets thinner as you go into the secondary grind there. So that's a little bit different for me as well. That is going to be the standard grind on this model. I know I mentioned before I don't do compound grinds all too often, but it is going to be standard for this model. So you're going to get the harpoon, the recurve, the compound grind. I did go ahead and do a nice high satin all the way around the outer perimeter on this knife for this particular customer on his request. Now the reason why I designed it the way I designed it, and the handle looks as wildly different from the Hellraiser and the Hellbound as it does, is number one, I did want to have an attitude adjuster here on the back. You can call it a glass breaker if you want, but again, this was designed really to be more of a fighting style knife. So you've got multiple different grips. So your standard forward grip here, you can actually bring it out extended here. That's why this comes in to fit right there into your hand. This is also contoured so it'll fit well there. When you're doing a reverse grip, this will work as a thumb rest for you. And the way that I designed this particular scale, you'll notice my scales don't ever go down into the blade. There's always a big separation between the blade and the handle. I did bring the scale all the way down so that no matter how you're holding this knife, you're not going to hit a sharp edge, you're not going to cut yourself, and it also gives you a good point of reference so that you know where you're holding the knife, not actually looking at it. So it doesn't matter how you're holding the knife, there is a reason and a contour or a shape in the handle to benefit every different type of handhold that I could personally think of that would be beneficial. This does work up into a thumb ramp here, so if you're actually doing just cutting tasks, you've got some extra support here. If you're choked up, you can obviously bring your thumb right up to the very back of the harpoon along the spine. and I wanted to do something that was extra tactile. So this is actually rubberized carbon fiber. So you've got the look of carbon fiber with that beautiful feel of rubber, and it feels great. And when the warmth of your hand hits it, it just kind of sticks and it kind of stays in place, and it doesn't move around. My camera is having a hell of a time focusing today. I'm not entirely certain why. It could be this background. So again, going with my theme of the crescents and the tails, obviously tapered all the way down to the blade. There's nothing to snag. And I also stop my tips right where the plunge is so that you don't have to worry about as you're cutting into something hitting those and creating any sort of issue. I've got about, I want to say about 300 or so Hellraisers out there in the free world, probably about 40 or 50 Hellbounds, and now this, and I've never had a report of anybody breaking a tip off of any of those scales, so it's obviously been working out really, really well. So I want to give you guys a little preview of that while I have it here, because these two knives will be getting sent off tomorrow to the gentleman that owns them. I'm having a lot of fun working with this one. The way that it feels in the hand, I just absolutely love it. It's a little bit slimmer in the hand as well than the Hellraiser and the Hellbound. The Hellbound I'm actually going to be retiring and sticking just with the Hellraiser and now the Hellseeker. And I really, really love how this comes out. I'm going to make a couple dress models and see how they look as well. But it is really meant to be more of a tactical knife. That's why I did my dark granite finish instead of a high luster hand rubbed satin or something like that. That's my preferred finish for my personal carry knives. I actually enjoy doing satin a lot more, and of course they look prettier and they look fancier and all that, but when it comes to a knife that you're actually going to use, I always suggest to somebody to do this, and it's also a lot cheaper than paying me to do a fancy satin. So anyway, there we go, guys. Again, I apologize for whatever reason my camera is not wanting to focus all that great, but I want to give you guys a nice long look at the Jekyll and Hyde before it goes out the door. And what I'll do is the next new model that I come out with, I will definitely try to make a video on it early. That way you guys kind of get a 3D look at it instead of just looking at pictures and whatnot. And when I build something special, I'll try to take the time to throw that up there on the good old YouTube as well. All right, I'm out of here for now. Thank you guys for joining me, and I'll catch you on the next video.